great compilation of facts and statistics out today from Think Progress on the issue of incarceration in America. And the problem is way worse than most people probably realize. They say, quote, both in raw numbers and by percentage of the population, the United States has the most prisoners of any developed country in the world, and it has the largest total prison population of any nation. More than 1.57 million inmates sat behind bars in federal, state, and county prisons and jails around the country as of December 31st, 2013. In the federal prisons, more than half of those sentenced to stints of a year or longer are still there for drug crimes. There's also gigantic racial disparities, as they go on to explain. They say, quote, black men are 6 times more likely than white men to be in prison. Hispanic men are 2.4 times more likely, according to a Sentencing Project analysis of the data. Now, let me pause here for a second and explain why that is. See, a lot of conservatives point to numbers like that and they go, oh, see, those communities are just more prone to violence, and that's why white people are inherently better. Now, that is a very silly and pathetic argument, because once you dive into further details and further numbers, you realize that, just to give one example, black people and white people use drugs at the exact same rate, but black people get locked up 4 times more often. So oftentimes the reality is that those communities are policed more than the white communities are. And also, you never see people from Wall Street, for example, who stole billions of dollars and not hundreds of dollars in those jails. And they probably should be in those jails. They continue, this doesn't paint the full picture of the U.S. incarceration system. Many have estimated the total number of U.S. incarceration to be more than 2.4 million. This is in part because another estimated 12 million individuals cycle through the county jail systems in a given year for periods of less than a year and are therefore not factored into the snapshot. A vastly greater number of Americans, 1 in 31, according to a 2009 Pew survey, are under U.S. corrections custody either through parole, probation, or incarceration, and 1 in 3 Americans have a criminal record, according to recent FBI estimates. 1 in 3 Americans. Wow. Wow. No, see, that's the thing. When you read a number like that, you know there's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for it. No, this is a giant con game being played on all of us, and it's the fault of the drug war. Could you imagine if we woke up tomorrow and we decided, let's decriminalize all drugs? And actually, you guys know I'd like to go a step further in the long run and legalize drugs. What would happen? Well, then you'd get a police department that actually does what they're supposed to do, which is they go around stopping assault, domestic violence, rape, I don't know, you name it, man, manslaughter, murder, whatever. This is what the cops would actually be fighting, and then everybody would love them. Everybody would be so happy to see a police officer if that's the case. If they did that and they wore cameras so they wouldn't fuck around and abuse their power, I mean, that's the police department in the U.S. or departments across the U.S. would be the most beloved institution by far. And we would stop criminalizing our entire population. If somebody smokes some weed, or if somebody does, I don't know, man, mushrooms or LSD or you name it, are they really a criminal? Are they really a criminal? I don't think they're any more of a criminal than somebody who drinks caffeine in the morning, which is, I don't know, most of us. I don't think they're any more of a criminal than people who have some tequila or some beer. I mean, this is the reality of it, but we don't think about it in this way because the culture we live in and the society we live in has essentially brainwashed us and drilled into our head that no, the drugs that we banned are especially bad, and so 1 out of 3 of you should have some point been criminals as a result of this. They say, quote, just this week, a Congressional Budget Office analysis found that passing a bipartisan bill in Congress to reform mandatory minimum sentences, the Smarter Sentencing Act, would reduce prison costs by $4 billion in just the first decade. The Justice Department projected savings of at least an additional $7.8 billion in the second decade. The Smarter Sentencing Act would roll back required sentences for drug offenses that start at 5 or 10 years in jail and ratchet up quickly from there. So, look at how much money we would save, even from a fiscal conservative perspective, from a budget hawk perspective and a deficit hawk perspective. This is the right thing to do. Now, the last fact I'll leave you with to show you why reform is beyond necessary. Actually, let me go back to that last point for a second, because those numbers I gave you, billions of dollars saved, that's only if we get rid of mandatory minimums, which is a no-brainer. And by the way, credit to Rand Paul and Cory Booker for working on that right now, okay? But if we were to go a step further, not just get rid of mandatory minimums, but decriminalize, the amount of money we would save. I mean, we could cut the amount that we spend on prisons in half. Maybe a little bit more. So Republicans should be leading the fight on this for that reason, and also for personal liberty reasons and personal freedom reasons. You really believe in small government? Have them stop locking you up if you smoke a joint. Now, here's the important last fact. Quote, the federal prison population had spiked more than 790% since 1980 when the war on drugs began. 790%. Are we doing something wrong here? Think about the war on drugs. We spent over $1 trillion. And today people are more likely to use drugs than before. You can't describe a worse failure than that.